Hello everyone, this is the final lesson in our study of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. We're going to look at the final pages in the novella. We're going to look at task 22, question 5, which is on page 38, and we're going to look at final words on page 39. So you can follow in your booklets or in your own copies, or just have a look at what I'm doing on the screen. Now, what you need to do before you analyse the ending is work out Dickens's message. If you remember Scrooge in the beginning of the novel, you will then see how he's changed at the end. And in the ending of the novel, Dickens lays a false trail. We're going to examine that now. Now, we see the redemption throughout the previous chapters of Scrooge. He bought a turkey for Bob and he didn't say who it was from. He then went to his nephew Fred's house, and these are the original illustrations. The one on the left of the turkey is by Cruikshank, and then you've got a colour plate, which would have been very expensive in the original editions, showing Fred welcoming Scrooge. And this is the extract that I'm going to start examining. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was a thing he set his heart upon. He did it, yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1/4 past. No Bob. He was a full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open, that he might see him come into the tank. And this shows that Scrooge, at the beginning of this, is very much like he was in the beginning. It says, clock struck 9, no Bob. And this makes us feel he's going to be angry with Bob and tell him off for being late. And that is what Bob thinks when he comes through the door. He's very apologetic and he's afraid he's going to be sacked because he's very specifically 18 and a half minutes late. And this is because Dickens lays a false trail. We think Scrooge has gone back to how he was in the beginning, as if it's all a dream and it isn't really a redemption. But then you get the idea of redemption. But before we can appreciate that, I want to let us look at whether we believe he has changed. So to know that he's changed, you've got to use references to previous scenes. So I've picked out a few scenes for you, and you can think of some quotations. You really should be learning these quotations for the exam. So I'm going to look in detail with you at the opening description of Scrooge, because you can use those quotations. Portly gentleman, some nice quotations there, Fred's party and the turkey. And I'd like you to think about finding a quotation for each scene. And I'll start you off on the first scene. So in stage 1, what kind of impression of Scrooge do we get? And how does Dickens create this? Now we've got this brilliant description in stave 1. Oh, he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shrivelled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. Now that contains a lot of quotations which you should be able to use when you look at the ending of the novel. First of all, covetous, envious. He's very envious of other people's wealth, and he does not want to give any of his money away. Miserly means he's tight-fisted, he's mean-spirited, and you have the image of hard and sharp as flint. He's solitary as an oyster. He's unsociable. He's not going to be wanting to have a drink with anybody. obsessed with work, and so on. Now, the one you should remember is hard and sharp as flint because this corresponds to the ending. We learn he is sharp, he can cut, he's rough, he is grey and old. And the idea of fire here is that flint can be used for fire, but Scrooge's hardness is not lighting any flames. It's just very, very cold. And the excellent image, solitary as an oyster, he's closed up, he doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. It can be worth a lot of money. He is actually very rich. He's got a hard shell, and he could be nice if you could open him up. Now then, let's think about that when we look at the final part of the novel. And I've read the first bit, but I'll read it again. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch late. That was a thing he had set his heart upon. We think that he is going to be nasty to him because he's gone back to being the old miser in the beginning. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No. Quarter past. No, Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hello," growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I am very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "You are?" repeated Scrooge. "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. "It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge, "I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer, and therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he wanted to get back into the tank again. "Therefore, I'm about to raise your salary," which is very shocking. So there you go, the contrast of Scrooge from the beginning to the end. It is absolutely remarkable. It's so magical. So think about when we first met Scrooge, and we talked about solitary as an oyster, hard and sharp as flint. In the portly gentleman scene, you've got "Are there not workhouses?" And when the charity men said, "Oh, they haven't got any money, they haven't got any food, they're dying on the streets," he says, "Well, they should die and decrease the surplus population." Fred's party, he says, "Will you let me in?" Which is, he's sort of coming to a realization that people don't like him and he cares about it now. And with the turkey, he says, "I'm going to give it to Bob Cratchit and he won't know who sent it." And it's the idea of spreading his money generously, not wanting anything in return for it. So he has changed, and we're going to look in detail at how he has. So first of all, we've got the idea that he's changed and he has changed for the better. So I would always use hard and sharp as flint. Dickens establishes the idea of the miser. He's a mean man obsessed with money and hoarding it. Another term you could use, which you should bear in your vocabulary, is avarice. Dickens's theme is to make the reader value giving wealth to give joy to others. And let's examine the scene to see how Scrooge has been transformed. We've got growled and we've got accustomed. So red and yellow, Scrooge is nasty. "What do you mean? Step this way, sir, and I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer." And then in green, I've got Scrooge being nice. "Fame, friend, and raise your salary." We're going to analyse those in some detail now. First of all, then, growls. This is nasty Scrooge. This gives the impression he's a predatory animal like a tiger or a wolf. It also shows he speaks to other people with no respect. The effect of the onomatopoeia is menacing, and we think Scrooge is going to sack Bob for being late. We do not see any change in his character, as Dickens shows us this is his usual or, quote, accustomed way of talking. And then secondly, "What do you mean?" is a rhetorical question. does not require Bob to say anything. He is treated like a little boy. He humbly calls Scrooge Sir. The decorative sentences, "Step this way," and "I am not going to stand for this," also require no answer and shows Scrooge's complete power over Bob. This is also the power of money. That is why Scrooge has this power, because he is his boss. Why does Dickens establish this hateful side of Scrooge? To show his greater alteration in character, and it also shows to me how Scrooge is abusing his power. He's not treating his fellow men with any humanity. He's not being a kind person, kind not just in being generous, but being pleasant to people. The abuse of power, one of the things Dickens is trying to do here is not just to change society by making everyone celebrate Christmas, but changing society by making people who have power realize they can use it for the common good. Scrooge can save Tiny Tim's life if he pays Bob higher wages. He can make him happy, and he can also make Bob's family happy. And you've got a knock-on effect, a ripple effect of creating a very happy environment for the people around you. He has that power. Now, Scrooge is Mr. Nice Guy. Number one, as near as he could feign it. Feign means to pretend. So we realise he's faking being nasty. He's making his voice growly on purpose. Secondly, he calls Bob his friend, which is very powerful and a complete change in attitude. He is showing that they are equals. You could interpret this in a religious way. In the Bible, it says the rich man will not fit to go to the kingdom of heaven. You can't fit an eye through the camels or something, through the eye of a camel to go to heaven, meaning that we are all equal in the eyes of God, however rich we are. Number three, raise your salary. He's going to use his money to spread happiness. And this is a major theme of the book, so Dickens achieves his purpose. His character is a pearl, not a closed shell. So before he was solitary as an oyster, and now the oyster's opened and there is the pearl. So Bob's reaction is one of utter fear. Bob trembled. He cannot understand it. And he got a little nearer to the ruler. He's going to use the ruler as a weapon to protect himself. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him and calling to the people in the court, that's the people outside, for help and a straight waistcoat. These were dreadful things they used to use in Victorian times if somebody, they used to call them lunatics, and they put them in a straitjacket, which would mean it would tie their arms tight. So Bob thinks that Scrooge is mad. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge with an earnestness that could not be mistaken as he clapped him on the back. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year." And in that, he's showing that he knows he's treated him badly and he doesn't really care. But he does care now. And he says, "I'll raise your salary." And not only raise his salary, but endeavour to assist your struggling family. So he's going to help others. And we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of Smoking Bishop. And I've got some lovely pictures for you there of Smoking Bishop. It's a mulled wine. They used to like hot. It was very cold when Dickens was writing it in 1845. It was called a mini ice age, and the Thames rose, and they were very cold, and they used to have a lot of hot drinks. So instead of just drinking wine or beer, they used to stick poker in the fire and then stick it in the jug, and it would become very hot. They used to like warm drinks, and Smoking Bishop was made from port, red wine, lemons or oranges, sugar and spices, and we'd still have mulled wine today. There's some nice pictures of it. And he says very significantly, "Make up the fires." And in the beginning, he won't let Bob put another coal on the fire. Poor Bob is warming his hands in front of the candle. And he says, "Buy another coal scuttle," which means he's going to use even more coal. "Before you dot another I, Bob cratchit." gonna make sure everybody's warm, and this is the warmth. The cold in Scrooge has melted. In the beginning, he had the pathetic fallacy of the ice walking around with him, and he could never warm the room, he could never warm himself. He was a cold-hearted man. Now the fire is coming in to his heart, as well as literally his hearth where the fire burned. You can see the picture of it there. That again is a Cruikshank, the black and white one. That was the illustrator at Dickens's time, and he is showing what they used to do, pouring the hot wine into the mug. So you can have a think. I think